Chance Wilkins, a well-documented Lolcow PDF file someone near nobody would ever want to align themselves with. One man, as it would seem, would believe that not to be the case. One man would ignore all the mountains of evidence, screenshots, recordings, live streams of Chancey Poo incriminating himself or flat out admitting to heinous acts. Let me introduce you fellas to the biggest Cyraxx defender and supporter you've never heard of, David Nguyen. You see, Dave would find himself committing various Cyraxx level acts of his own, but we'll get into that later. First, we need to go over his adamant obsession with defending Cyraxx in various other lolcows.
Get ugly for David Nguyen.
Perhaps seeing a little of himself in each and every one of these guys, he would go ahead an innumerable amount of times, creating channel after channel such as Cow Defense Group or The Troll Punisher, in order to post videos using an AI voice changer, where he would ramble on and on for a few minutes about how lolcow culture is taking advantage of innocent mentally ill men and women. You'd see if you went out and watched any of these videos on Cyraxx, they all follow a similar premise, and that is, Cyraxx is a poor innocent man, I believe all his trolls are frauds, yada yada yada. Of course, within every channel or video he claims a different name, maybe uses a slightly different AI voice or voice changer, but every video ends up with the same speaking pattern, making similar points, and end up getting referenced one way or another on his main Twitter. David would foster this huge hatred toward his best buddy Cyraxx detractors, clearly displayed here with channel names like William Glory Hole Sucks. A more concerning issue here is the meeting Cyraxx online or even in person starts to become less of a small possibility and starts to creep closer and closer to becoming a reality. You see, the major reason why I believe it's perfectly reasonable to believe David is capable of interacting with and more directly supporting the Goblin is because he's crawled that much closer to him with the following interactions with Tibbs TV, yet another lolcow who found himself gaming with and talking with Chance on the regular some time ago. The first utterings of their interaction came with these Twitter posts reading, "Most of these trolls have skeletons of their own, and this one cow is an expert at pulling those skeletons out of the trolls' closets." That one particular term, referencing skeletons being in the closet of trolls, is a term Tibbs TV would make time and time again on his own various channels and daily streams, where he's constantly making claims of his detractors and trolls all being PDF files themselves. David would also say, he'll be teaming up with a cow to take down this culture, and it's not the guy from Akron. It's someone else who I'll be joining forces with. Yet again referencing the Goblin on 339 Lloyd Street. And he'd clearly be alluding to Tibbs TV, ex-BFF of Cyraxx here. His ominous referencing of an impending team-up with another lolcow would seem to start to fruit underneath a video David made calling out lolcow culture as a whole, where, coincidentally, Tibbs TV would find it and leave this novel of a comment, supporting David and his idea that every troll or commentator in the lolcow community would actually be predators themselves, and agreeing with Dave on how it all needs to stop. So with this whole inching closer and closer to interacting with Cyraxx would come out with this mysterious contact made with Tibbs TV, it makes you wonder if this next plan David has involving Cyraxx is truly all that out of the question, and that would be... I'll first start off with reading this post made to the AITAH subreddit with an account linked to David by the Reddit archivers. Post made by Quiet Football 9351. Am I the asshole for leaving the state while out on bond? So there's this guy named Chance who lives in Akron, Ohio, and he's a victim of some horrific cyberbullying. I'm a victim of cyberbullying myself, and I'm suffering through it every day. I recently came up with the idea of going to this guy, aka Chance's house, and have a talk with him in an attempt to help him out. I wanted to help out someone who is going through the same stuff that I'm going through, and I'm planning on flying up to Cleveland and renting a car and driving down to Akron to see him. Because of his trolls breaking his computer, I'm thinking about taking him to Best Buy and help him out by buying him a new gaming PC so that he can continue his online content creation career and that his trolls took away from him. He's accused of the same things that people have accused me as, such as PDF allegations and such, things that are not true. My uncle told me that I'm a huge ass for wanting to do this, as I'm not technically allowed to go out of state because I'm out on bond for a case. I'm told I'm most likely going to get probation for this case, and so I figured that isn't that serious. And I'm just thinking I'm going and not telling the court that I went. I think if I were to keep quiet, then the court would not find out. My uncle says that I'm an asshole for wanting to do this. Am I really a jerk for wanting to help out someone? The usual with David when it comes to Chance. Heavy usage of calling Cyraxx a victim. A goblin, again, well known at this point to be someone with victims of his own and not being a victim himself. But there's this whole dangerous plan to get Cyraxx a PC to support his content creation. It began here, and he'd sink his teeth right into this idea. Now, it's never a good idea to toy with the idea of supporting the Goblin at 339. For starters, he's claimed himself to be a non-offending PDF file, also claimed himself to be another type of file. He'd been caught time and time again in stings where he has made multiple attempts at contacting people from a very young demographic, inappropriately, and just a plethora of other terrible, degenerate things we couldn't possibly elaborate on here today. But if of course, you are interested in finding more about Cyraxx, Sunday nights, my co-hosts Hades and I, and some Raxologists, will be indulging in some Rax content to get the full picture for ourselves if you'd like to join us. Of course, David won't let that deter him. David would flex how untrackable and elusive he is with a post to Twitter claiming he's driving 2+ hours away to send Rax a letter or package to prove an earlier point he had once made. None of Chancey Poo's mail is actually being intercepted like the trolls claim. Just so you know, I'm not scared of that F-tard loser William. He's gonna have a hard time finding me as I'm very good at concealing myself and keeping myself hidden. I'm tired of seeing others get shit on like myself, and I'm taking a stand with all these fights posted below. Obviously, this can't and should never happen. Any contact David tries to make, Booger King would throw another stray at Mr. William in another post to Twitter, along with screenshots of some flights to Cleveland, alluding to this plan to fly out to Cleveland and drive to Akron to meet up with Rax from there, then flexing that constant point that he's so incredibly hard to find, as he goes through in order to defend the predators and creeps that he does. Why don't we take a look into the offenses David has had of his own, aside from the Lolcow team-ups. Even back in high school, all alleged I'd like to add moving forward for now, it would be evident that David would end up being creepy with the beginning of his pattern of habitual harassment of the opposing gender starting, with claims of stalking Janelle Beline, a girl who went to high school with the stinker. She would claim that he used to stalk her, even claiming it got to the point of it being so bad that he had to spend a good portion of that year in an alternative school, only to return and apparently continue to freak out girls in his high school. This, of course, coming to light after someone came across the David archive over on Reddit and had made a claim about this all transpiring. That stalking where this would cause so many problems for her and around her that a venue would ban her just to keep David from showing up there again. That unfortunately would only be the beginnings of his degenerate behavior though, when he would eventually meet Sam, with Sam being 16 and Dave 21 at the time of their meeting. Someone Dave would consider a close friend for a while. David would receive all sorts of attention from him. He would use this attention to take advantage of Sam though, constantly being bought things by him, staying at his place when he had no behavior would allegedly continue into his adulthood, with multiple other instances of it being documented, with one such notable case being of a smaller singer/performer David would follow around and harass. Doesn't seem to get along with. Tensions would rise and rise. This would all come to a point shortly after the cockroach launches a plan to get Sam and his girl broken up. Now, moving forward with what follows are allegations and claims supported by multiple different sources and archived in public posts online. None of those are presented as proven facts, but together they form a story that's been widely discussed in the Reddit. The genius would supposedly get his best friend completely sloshed, like blackout drunk, and David would dress up with a wig and feminine clothing and proceed to SA Sam while completely unaware of what was going on. This disgusting act would supposedly be done and recorded in order to blackmail Sam into breaking up with Audrey. Of course, shortly after this event, the blackmailing would fail or talks of it would fizzle out, but just putting out there on full display the type of behavior that this man gets up to, it's awful. Aside from the disgusting nature of that alleged incident, cross-dressing also isn't out of the ordinary for our antagonist though, because when he isn't making channels defending other PDF files and lolcows, he's making little lip-syncing videos/dance videos, cross-dressing, and even duetting himself in this one clip, one in drag and one not. Now, he spends the rest of his time constantly on the internet posting hundreds of times a day to Twitter and creating god-awful short films, with one having a very worrisome scene in which he talked about with his friends where an ex, who wasn't really an ex but a girl he was stalking and obsessed with, was brutally unalived, as he put it. I'll go ahead and read for you fellas too, just to get more into the head of this creature. So I did some things that my friends are now questioning me and calling me a psycho over it. I was working on a new film and it was a gritty detective crime story film. It was based on a crime thriller film from a decade ago that I really liked. In the original film, there was a lady who was taken while jogging in the middle of the night, and they found her 5 days later in a lake or pond. I wrote the script for this like over a year ago when I was upset over my ex, and so I depicted some really gruesome scenes for her off-screen character. I portrayed that she was taken like the original character, but I portrayed it as she was unalived and found scattered in a dozen pieces. Like, some at the lake and the other by I-65. Moving down, he said it was over the top gruesome, and what I did counts as me being a psychotic jerk is what his friends were saying about him. Delving deeper and deeper into the story that is David Nguyen, the Cyraxx supporting, woman scaring, predator that can't seem to help but continue to post daily and constantly to the internet. You'll just continue to be disgusted by the way he acts and the things he posts online. If you fellas enjoyed this video and want to learn more about David or other people like him, don't be scared to become a grubba and subscribe. Maybe like the video too if you want more on David. Or maybe if this video was really that awesome, to join us and become a pure grub and gain access to some of the behind the scenes videos coming out along with these impeccable emotes. I just want to thank you guys for making it all the way through for this video and give a special thanks to the very first pure grub member of the channel, Rockets and Hot Rods 9022. Anywho, later Grubbas.
Alright, babysitter sex, babysitter porn.